Sarper and Shekinah are officially divorced in this fictional storyline, but the papers are not the real shock. Shekinah is standing there with signed documents in her hand. Sarper is still saying the marriage is not truly over. And that alone tells you everything about the emotional gap between them. One person believes the relationship has ended. The other believes the ending can still be negotiated. They survived jealousy, arguments over appearance, family pressure, cultural tension, and more breakup threats than most couples could handle. Yet somehow, they always found a way back. That is why this final split feels different. According to this fictional scenario, production even stopped filming during their last confrontation because the argument became too personal and too explosive. But here's the question viewers cannot ignore. What happened off camera that finally pushed Shekinah past the point of another apology? Because the divorce papers were not the moment the marriage ended. The marriage may have ended hours earlier, when Shekinah found messages between Sarper and a woman from his past. Sarper says the conversation was harmless. Shekinah believes it proved he had never really changed. And the most damaging part was not romance. It was familiarity. This woman knew private details about their marriage. She knew what they fought about. She knew what Shekinah feared. She even knew Sarper had been questioning whether the relationship could survive. So now the biggest mystery is not whether Sarper physically cheated. It is why another woman had access to emotional information that his own wife thought belonged inside their marriage. And when Sarper finally explains himself, he does not calm the situation. He makes it much worse. The event itself is simple. Shekinah sees private messages. She confronts Sarper. Sarper denies crossing a line. Then both of them start arguing about completely different things. Shekinah is talking about secrecy. Sarper is talking about privacy. Shekinah is asking why he hid the relationship. Sarper is asking why she looked through his phone. That difference matters because it shows how they have handled conflict for years. They rarely stay on the same issue long enough to solve it. Sarper's defense is that the messages were not romantic. He says the woman was someone who understood him. He claims he needed advice because the marriage had become stressful. On the surface, that explanation may sound reasonable. Married people sometimes ask friends for advice. But the problem is not simply that he talked to someone. The problem is that he allegedly shared details he had never fully discussed with Shekinah. This is where trust becomes more important than the actual messages. A healthy couple can survive an uncomfortable conversation. A fragile couple sees one hidden conversation as proof of every old fear. Shekinah's fear has always been that Sarper will say whatever keeps the peace, then behave differently when she is not watching. Sarper's fear has always been that Shekinah will leave the moment she stops believing in his promises. These fears do not cancel each other. They feed each other. Sarper hides something because he expects a dramatic reaction. Shekinah reacts dramatically because she believes he hides things. Then he uses her reaction to justify more secrecy. She uses his secrecy to justify more monitoring. That is not one bad argument. That is a system. And once a couple develops that system, every new conflict feels like evidence that the relationship was doomed from the start. Sarper then makes the mistake that destroys his own defense. Instead of focusing on why Shekinah feels betrayed, he accuses her of searching for an excuse to leave. He says she was already unhappy. He says she had emotionally checked out. He even suggests she may have been preparing a public breakup before she found the messages. Now, could he be partly right? In this fictional storyline, yes. Shekinah had already started making an exit plan. But that does not automatically make her discovery meaningless. People often prepare to leave when they no longer feel emotionally safe in the relationship. Preparation does not prove manipulation. Sometimes it proves exhaustion. Sarper sees the exit plan as evidence that Shekinah was dishonest. Shekinah sees the plan as protection from another cycle. That is the central contradiction. Both believe the other person created the conditions for secrecy. He hid conversations because he feared her response. She hid her plan because she feared his reaction. And then Sarper takes it further. He accuses her of wanting the divorce for publicity. That accusation changes the energy completely. Until that moment, the fight is about trust. After that moment, the fight becomes about character. He is no longer saying she misunderstood him. He is saying she used him. That is an incredibly dangerous move in a relationship because it erases every feeling the other person has expressed. If Shekinah is angry, Sarper can call it performance. If she is hurt, he can call it strategy. If she leaves, he can say she planned everything. Once he frames her emotions as publicity, there is nothing she can say that he must take seriously. Shekinah responds by revealing what she had kept hidden. For weeks, she had quietly prepared for the possibility that the marriage would end. She had moved important belongings. She had separated some personal finances. She had contacted someone she trusted. She had also stopped making long-term plans that depended on Sarper changing. That does not mean she had definitely chosen divorce. It means she had stopped believing love alone could protect her from another collapse. She still stayed because Sarper promised therapy, honesty, and a fresh start. But according to this fictional scenario, his behavior became more controlling as he sensed her pulling away. That is another pattern worth examining. Sometimes controlling behavior does not begin when a relationship feels secure. It gets stronger when one person feels the other slipping away. Sarper may tell himself he is fighting for the marriage. Shekinah may experience that fight as pressure. He asks more questions. He wants more reassurance. He becomes more suspicious. He demands proof of loyalty. She becomes quieter. He reads the silence as guilt. She reads his questions as control. By the time one partner physically leaves, they may have emotionally left weeks earlier. That does not happen because they wake up cold one morning. It usually happens after too many unresolved arguments. Each conflict removes a little hope. Each apology becomes less convincing. Each promise feels shorter than the last one. The most revealing detail is that Shekinah recorded one of their final arguments. She says she feared Sarper would later deny what he said. That recording is not just a dramatic twist. It reveals how little trust remained. When someone feels they need a record of the conversation, communication has already become evidence. Sarper reacts exactly as Shekinah expected. He does not ask why she felt the need to record him. He demands to hear it. She refuses and says only her lawyers will receive it. That sentence turns their marriage into a legal dispute in real time. Sarper becomes emotional and accuses her of turning their relationship into a case file. And honestly, that may be the most accurate thing he says. Their marriage has become a collection of accusations, screenshots, messages, old promises, deleted photos, and competing versions of the same event. They are no longer arguing to understand each other. They are arguing to prove who is right. Sarper wants the recording because he believes context will save him. Shekinah withholds it because she believes context has always been his escape route. He says he was emotional. She says he was threatening the stability of the relationship. He says he did not mean every word. She says the words still revealed what he believed. Then comes the admission. Sarper finally confirms that he contacted the woman from his past. But he insists he only wanted advice. He says Shekinah had become distant. He says he needed someone who could help him understand why everything felt different. Shekinah asks the obvious question. Why did he seek comfort from another woman instead of talking to his wife? Sarper says he tried. She says he only talked when he wanted reassurance. That difference is huge. Talking is not the same as communicating. One person can speak for an hour without ever making the other person feel heard. Sarper may have wanted Shekinah to tell him the marriage was safe. Shekinah wanted Sarper to understand why it no longer felt safe. He wanted certainty. She wanted change. That is why their conversations kept failing. He treated reassurance as the solution. She treated behavior as the solution. The major reveal comes when Shekinah learns what the other woman said. According to this fictional storyline, the woman told Sarper he would be happier without Shekinah. Sarper never corrected her. He did not defend his wife. He did not say the marriage was worth saving. He allowed the idea to remain in the conversation. That silence becomes more damaging than any romantic message. Silence can be agreement, avoidance, shock, or simple weakness. But Shekinah does not hear complexity. She hears permission. To her, Sarper allowed another woman to imagine a future where his wife was gone. This is the moment Shekinah says the marriage truly ended. Not when she found the messages. Not when Sarper raised his voice. Not when the divorce papers were signed. It ended when she realized he had emotionally entertained life without her, then blamed her for preparing to leave. There is also a painful contradiction here. Sarper accuses Shekinah of planning an exit, yet he was discussing the possibility of being happier without her. Both were imagining the relationship ending. The difference is that Shekinah was preparing practically. Sarper was exploring it emotionally. When the separation becomes public, the private conflict turns into a competition over public sympathy. Sarper posts emotional messages suggesting he was abandoned. He shares memories from happier moments. He posts old photos where they appear deeply connected. He describes Shekinah as the person who changed his life, then disappeared when he needed her most. Shekinah responds very differently. She releases a colder statement about choosing peace over chaos. She removes photos. She stops wearing her ring. She does not argue point by point. That silence may look controlled, but it is also strategic. Sarper is telling a story of heartbreak. Shekinah is telling a story of survival. Some fans feel Sarper's public sadness proves his love was real. They argue that he is emotional because he finally understands what he lost. Many viewers are saying Shekinah had already made the decision before the final argument. They believe the hidden messages simply gave her a public reason to do what she already wanted. Another section of the audience believes Sarper's posts are part of the same pattern Shekinah described. They see emotional declarations after the damage, not before it. They point out that public regret can be sincere and still arrive too late. A person can love someone deeply and still create an unhealthy relationship. That is where the fan debate becomes interesting. People often want one clear villain. Reality relationships are rarely that simple. Sarper may be controlling and genuinely devastated. Shekinah may be exhausted and still capable of hurting him. Her exit plan can be understandable while her secrecy still affects him. His emotional confession can be sincere while his behavior still caused the breakup. Sarper begins posting old romantic memories because he wants the public to remember the good parts. Shekinah removes those same memories because she wants distance from the cycle. Neither choice tells us the full truth. It tells us what each person needs the public to see. Then Sarper sends one final voice message. Shekinah listens, but she does not respond. And what he says changes the emotional meaning of the entire breakup. In the fictional message, Sarper admits he knew Shekinah was becoming emotionally exhausted. He says he noticed how quiet she became after arguments. He noticed she stopped fighting for reassurance. He noticed she no longer reacted to promises the way she once did. He also admits something even more important. He kept testing her loyalty because he feared she would eventually leave. He wanted proof that she would choose him. So he created situations where she had to defend the relationship again and again. He questioned her commitment. He pushed her boundaries. He made her prove love under pressure. That is the tragedy. Fear of abandonment can create the exact behavior that pushes someone away. Sarper feared losing control, so he tried to control the outcome. Shekinah experienced that control as a reason to leave. The more distant she became, the more pressure he applied. The more pressure he applied, the more certain she became that she needed an exit. Sarper finally admits his need for control may have created the ending he feared. That sounds like growth. But growth after consequences is complicated. Is it real understanding, or is it panic? Has he changed, or has he simply lost access to the person who kept forgiving him? Some fans feel the confession proves Sarper is finally taking responsibility. They believe losing the marriage forced him to confront himself. Others argue that the message still centers his pain. He explains why he controlled her. He explains why he tested her. He explains why he feared losing her. But does he fully address what those choices did to Shekinah? That is the difference between regret and accountability. Regret says, I hate what this cost me. Accountability says, I understand what this did to you. Sarper's message appears to move toward accountability, but it may not fully arrive there. Shekinah listens and does not return. That silence is not necessarily cruelty. It may be the first boundary she has held without turning it into another debate. For years, every ending became another conversation. Every conversation became another promise. Every promise reopened the relationship. By not responding, Shekinah refuses to enter the old cycle. Sarper's confession does not save the marriage. It confirms why the marriage had to end. He finally names the pattern she had been describing. But he names it after the damage became permanent. Their final meeting is quiet, which makes it more painful. Sarper arrives to exchange belongings, but he still expects one last chance. Shekinah arrives without her ring. That visual tells him what the paperwork could not. He offers to start again without cameras, public pressure, or outside opinions. He believes the environment damaged them. Shekinah says the cameras did not destroy the marriage. They exposed what was already broken. That line matters because reality television often becomes the easiest explanation. Couples blame filming. They blame editing. They blame fans. They blame distance, culture, family, and social media. Sarper asks whether she ever truly loved him. Shekinah says loving someone does not mean accepting endless chaos. That is probably the clearest summary of their relationship. Love was never the only problem. They may have loved each other intensely, but intensity is not stability. Passion is not trust. Reconciliation is not repair. A couple can survive dramatic fights when both people change the pattern. Sarper and Shekinah repeatedly changed the mood, not the pattern. They moved from anger to romance. They moved from breakup threats to emotional reunions. They felt relief, then mistook relief for progress. The long-term implication is not simply that they are divorced. It is that both of them may carry the same pattern into their next relationships. Sarper may continue testing loyalty unless he learns to tolerate uncertainty. Shekinah may continue preparing private exits unless she learns to communicate boundaries before she reaches emotional shutdown. For the rest of this fictional season, Sarper will likely keep searching for a way to reopen communication. He may frame it as closure. He may ask mutual friends to contact Shekinah. He may post another emotional message that sounds like a final goodbye but leaves the door open. Shekinah will probably focus on proving she is moving forward. She may speak about choosing herself. She may discuss how much she changed during the relationship. But she will also face difficult questions. Why did she stay so long? Why did she keep accepting promises? Why did she prepare secretly instead of confronting the problem earlier? Those questions are fair, but they should not become blame. Leaving a chaotic relationship is rarely one clean decision. People leave emotionally, return hopefully, prepare quietly, and doubt themselves repeatedly. The final exit may look sudden to viewers because the private process lasted much longer. Sarper's biggest challenge will be accepting that an apology does not create access. Shekinah can believe his confession and still refuse reconciliation. She can forgive him and still choose distance. She can love him and still decide the relationship is not healthy enough to continue. Shekinah's biggest challenge will be avoiding the temptation to return simply because Sarper finally says the right thing. The most powerful apology often arrives when the other person has stopped waiting. That does not make the apology false. It makes timing part of accountability. And that brings us back to the final image. Sarper does not chase her. He watches Shekinah leave. For the first time, there is no dramatic reunion, no last-minute promise, and no new rule for how they will fix everything. The argument is finally over because Shekinah refuses to keep negotiating the ending. Sarper is left with the one thing he spent the marriage trying to avoid. He has no control over what she chooses next. So was Sarper's final confession genuine growth, or did he only understand the damage after he lost control? And did Shekinah leave too quickly, or had she already stayed much longer than anyone realized?